I have had the biggest crush on Los Angeles since I first visited for 7 days in 2024. That's all it took for me to fall in love with her. In fact, it took me not even 24 hours upon landing in LA last year to decide that I wanted to collapse my entire life in London just to be here. It was love at first sight, honestly. And I know that that's not everyone's experience, but it's mine. Holy Scheisenhausen. So I've been living in Los Angeles for almost 6 months now. And I'm going to tell you about my first time in LA last year, how I fell in love with it, and the year that I spent collapsing my life in London and waiting to move here. It was this liminal, transitional space of sorts where I was existing between the life I had and the life I was coming into here in Los Angeles. And it was the weirdest fucking time of my life. And it was also deeply magical. If I am like a radio, then my frequency and my signal in London was almost like this, like static, like with the occasional beautiful note bursting through, right? The occasional clear signal would burst through and it would sound beautiful and then it would go back to... And when I'm in Los Angeles, it's just constant, beautiful fucking music. I don't understand it. I don't need to fucking know. I don't want to know. But chains upon chains of magical things happened when I visited here last year. And it became abundantly clear to me that I needed to leave London because there was so much more for me waiting out there. There was so much more optimism. There was a culture that permits you to be ambitious in Los Angeles that I didn't even know existed. I have never been more sure in my life that I'm supposed to be in a place ever than Los Angeles. And I've spent a very long time crushing on her. So what the fuck led me to decide to move to Los Angeles? LA had always been this place that I'd only ever heard really awful, shitty things about. So me and Los Angeles, we didn't have the best, like I didn't have the best idea of her, okay? And then one day I was just in my bedroom in London, and every morning I do this morning prayer where I just speak to the sky and I say my intentions for the day, okay? I will say, thank you for everything. I'll just talk to the sky. Thank you for everything. Guide me throughout the day. Send me some magic. Maybe I'll say some things that I want. Maybe I will just be grateful. Maybe I will send love to my enemies. Honestly, I've sent love to my enemies before, okay? It's good for the soul. It's good for the soul. And it makes me feel good. So that morning, I did send love to my enemies, I think. I sent love to everyone and whatever. I was speaking to the sky in my morning prayer. And for some fucking reason, out of nowhere, I look up at the sky and I say, send me to Los Angeles. out of nowhere. And so I was like, oh, like I was literally just looking around like, where the fuck did that come from? That was really weird. Anyway, I just let go and I went about my day. I then get invited to attend a dinner full of women that I don't fucking know. Okay? It's one of these International Women's Day dinners. I got invited to it. I'm never invited to that shit, ever. I never get invited to these things. And I'm invited to this International Women's Day dinner by an amazing brand. I go to the dinner and I meet this room full of amazing fucking women. And it just feels so aligned, so amazing. I'm feeling like, oh my God, it's so good to be in a room full of other women that love the world and love people and also fucking love making money, okay? At these dinners, they put your name on like a placemat. So you're seated next to someone. And I was seated next to a woman who is also signed to the same book agent as me. She's amazing. She's also a queer author. We've met a couple of times, but we don't know each other that well, okay? So we're seated next to each other and we start talking and I'm like, hey, what are you up to lately? And she goes, oh, I'm going to LA this week. And I was like, oh my God, that sounds amazing. And she said, wait, I feel like you should come. And I was like, what do you mean? She was like, I feel like I need to invite you. You should come. And I said, well, you know what? This morning, God told me that I need to go to Los Angeles. So I was like, I think I need to go. And she was like, yeah, fuck it, come. So I was just like, this is so synchronistic and funny. Like that random morning, I asked the universe to send me to Los Angeles. And I don't know why, okay? I still don't know why. But it felt intuitive. It felt like it came through me rather than me like begging the universe. It just came out of nowhere. And here was a woman inviting me to Los Angeles. And it was possibly the most divine intervention I've ever had in my life. I've never had anything quite like that happen to me. So I was like, fuck it, I'm going. But then the fear started to creep in. And I was like, am I being like too spontaneous? I have my book deadline. So the deadline for Women Living Deliciously, my latest book, that was coming up. And I was like, I should stay at home. And then my friend was like, Floss, you're a fucking grown up. You can write on the plane. It's an 11-hour flight. You can write in the hotel. She was like, come. She was like, I feel like you need to come. She was like, you need to go to LA and know someone out there. Just come. Because I didn't know anyone in LA, okay? And I was like, fuck yeah, I think I have to do this. I think I have to listen to this hunch. There's something out there waiting for me in LA. Fuck knows what it is. So I go home and I tell my assistant and my team, I'm going to LA and I'm going to be gone for 10 days. I'm going to finish writing my book. That's where I'll be. So I decide that if this is some magical kismet trip, I need to go all in, okay? So I book myself the most ridiculous hotel. It's pink. It's old Hollywood glamour. It's from the 1920s. It's Art Deco. And I book myself a suite in the building. I write in the little notes that you can leave in the booking form. I say, please give me the pinkest room possible and one that gets loads of sunshine. And I can't believe I'm doing it, right? And so I call my mum and I'm like, Mum, everything's really expensive. I don't know if I should go now or if I should just go in a few months or something. And my mum was like, oh, Floss, you should go in a few months. You should go in a few months. You'll be able to get nicer flights. You'll be able to do it really well. And something in me told me, no, you have to go now. And I needed my mum to be a bit of like a doubter and a bit of a logical person. So that the thing in me that really wanted to go to LA could like defend itself, because otherwise I would have just been like wishy-washy about it. But having my mum say, wait a few months till it's cheaper and be all boring and logical helped me realize, no, there's like this sliding door moment here. And if I don't go to LA now, this magical thing that's supposed to happen won't happen. So I book everything. I pack my outfits. I get ready for the airport. And on the way to the airport, I have a female Uber driver, and I've never had a female Uber driver before. And unfortunately, it was the worst Uber ride I've ever had in my life to the airport, which I hated because I was like, oh, I hate that. I hate that my worst Uber driver ever was with a woman. It would be a much nicer, funnier story, an on-brand story if it was a man, but it was a woman. And it was so funny. It was like a scene from a movie. She was eating crisps from underneath the car seat and then shoving them in her mouth as she was driving, and then sucking the crumbs off her fingers and then like letting the fingers dry as she was steering the wheel. It was so funny. Anyway, I was like telling myself, I was like, wait, this is hilarious. This is a moment. This doesn't ruin the magic. This is funny. This is a bit, okay? So I'm going to the airport and I miss my flight because of all the traffic, and she took this long route. Anyway, I get in line for this flight and it's moving really slow. I get to the check-in desk and they say, I'm so sorry, but there's no more room on the plane. You've missed your flight. I'm about to cry and get emotional. And then I remembered, wait, everything divine happens to me. This is divine intervention. I'm not supposed to be on that fucking plane, okay? But to make it worse, the guy that I was flying with, he went, oh, I'm sorry you've missed the plane. And I was like, oh no. And he said, yeah, oh, it's such a shame because, oh, it looks like you were upgraded to business. And I was like, great, didn't need to know that. Anyway, so I come out of the queue, and it turns out there's another flight in an hour. Okay, so that's amazing. I get to relax in the airport lounge, and my flight was also fucking upgraded to business. So for some reason, I was meant to miss that plane. Who knows why? I just wasn't meant to be on that plane, okay? Thank you, universe, for giving me the crisp chomping Uber driver that made me late. Thank you. Clearly it was a blessing, okay? She was the delay and I needed it. So I take my laptop. I've never missed, also important to mention, I've never missed my flight in my life. That's never happened to me. Okay, I've just turned a little light on because it's getting really dark in here. Okay, so then I get on my plane and I spend the entire 11-hour flight from London to LAX writing my fucking ass off. I think I was writing the introduction for my last book. And it was just gushing out of me. There was no internet connection. And it was just this pure self-expression. And I also started a new diary. I don't know what the fuck happened, but something in me was like, something in me knew this was a shifting moment for me in my life. A bit like when you have a breakup or something. It was like, oh, this is a shift. I'm about to experience a shift. And so I started a new diary. Now, to really let you know how big of a deal that is, I have kept the same journal for about 5 years. And it was called The Diary of a Bisexual Carrie Bradshaw. Okay? And I've had that diary for about 5 years on my laptop. Okay, so my diaries are both digital and physical. And this diary that I've written into every single day for the last 5 years is about 400,000 words long. Okay, so that's about 2.5 Bible lengths of a diary written by me about my life called The Diary of a Bisexual Carrie Bradshaw. Okay. And I was like, I need a shift. I'm done with the smallness. I'm done. Something in me was like, we're done and we're never going back. And so the diary that I started was just called A Whole New Fucking Bitch. And I don't know what possessed me, but I'm sat in the terminal. So it's before I got on the plane. And I just decided I'm starting a new diary. I'm done. It was like this possession happened. And I called it A Whole New Fucking Bitch, started a new Word document. And I just started writing, I can't wait to see what happens in LA. I've never been more excited in my life. And I'm just writing about all of my feelings. Maybe I'll read the entry at some point with you. That would be really fun. Little bonus episode. But okay, so I'm writing into my diary entry. I get on the plane. I'm writing for 11 hours on the plane. I don't sleep. All I can think about is my book because there's no Wi-Fi on the plane. I'm just in my little cabin, in my little cubicle, and I'm just writing for 11 hours. I get off the plane, hop off the plane at LAX. Exactly. And I'm walking through the terminals. I'm in my little cunty Penny Lane coat. I put my little lip gloss on. I'm feeling amazing. So I've got this tiny little pink suitcase and I'm just strutting through. I order myself an Uber and I drive through Los Angeles to go to my hotel. And through the drive, I really had no expectations, okay? I didn't really know much about LA, but very quickly I felt it was a place I belonged. I don't know how, I don't know why. Anyway, I get to my hotel, I check in, they give me my room, and they leave a little cookie on the bed that's warm with the turn down service. I open my fucking window and my view is of the Hollywood Hills, glistening, twinkling, and sparkling. And I just can't, I'm like, what the fuck is this? And there were like helicopters everywhere. And someone in the lobby was talking about some ridiculous paparazzi thing that was happening around the corner. And it was like being plotted into the middle of some like LA sitcom. It was just so funny. And so I'm in my hotel room by myself to a city I've never been in. No one is expecting me except the friend that invited me out, but she was on her own trip. You know, we were having separate trips and we were going to hang out a couple times. And I decide I need to do something really frightening. And so I take myself down to the bar of the hotel, which is one of LA's like biggest hotspots. And I go down without my fucking phone. I leave my phone in my room, so I make it as scary as possible. And I sit at the bar by myself, sober, drinking a little mocktail, and I sit and I observe the room. And I push through the discomfort that I feel for being alone. There were like beautiful perfumed guests wafting past me, people flirting, people having the most ridiculous fucking conversations. There was some guy bullying another guy out of a fucking lawsuit or something. And and then in the background, I can just see palm trees swaying, like the silhouette of palm trees swaying. Someone's playing on the piano and you've got this beautiful smell that I don't even know. It's probably the hotel's specific scent. And I just felt like I transported into a little time capsule in the 1920s or something. And I just felt that this was exactly where I belonged. The entire next day, it's raining in Los Angeles. I didn't realize how insanely rare that was. But I brought my running clothes. I had my little crop top and my leggings and my trainers. And I run down to the hotel reception and I'm like, where's the best place for me to run? And they all start laughing because no one runs on Sunset. Like on Sunset Boulevard, it's just a bit nuts, especially when it's raining. And they were like, oh girl, you're not from here. And because it was it was raining as well. And at the time I didn't understand that like rain is a big deal in LA. Anyway, I went for a run. I ran through Beverly Hills. I ran everywhere. Like, you know that video of Drew Barrymore when she's like, when it's raining, go outside. I was just running around all of the streets in LA. And it just felt like freedom to me because no one knew I was here. And oh my God. Okay. So the moment I fell in love with LA was that day because everyone said good morning. I went running through these streets and everyone was like, good morning, have a good day, good morning, morning. How are ya? Good morning. And I was just like, no fucking way. As a British person, that is nuts. Like, this is the stuff that I just thought only existed in movies. But I guess most of the movies are American. And so actually it's just an accurate representation of America. And then I had like 5 interesting conversations just walking around the fucking street. And I just had the best fucking time, came back to my hotel, and for the rest of the week, I had the most insane synchronistic things happen. And it was magical thing after magical thing after magical thing after magical thing. I had the most insanely beautiful, amazing conversations with the Uber drivers. And I just felt like my magic had space to grow and be matched and expressed and fertilized here. And not everyone has this experience in LA. One of my best friends in London came here and she fucking hated it. She was like, it's not for me. She was like, it is not for me. And I stay very true to my own experience. This is one of the most magical cities ever. There is so much potent energy in Los Angeles. And I just fell in love with it on my first trip. There are buildings that look like castles. There is so much 70s architecture here. People say good morning. People are open. Ambition is encouraged here. If you're a little bit nuts, that's fine. It's welcomed. People act on their urges here, like their self-expressive urges. So if someone thinks you have a nice outfit, they're going to fucking say it. They're not going to be putting their head down, playing it cool. You know, everyone expresses their urges here. And I just felt like I could be part of this bigger orchestra of life and actually sing my part in the song and not mute it. And I felt like that I felt it so quickly here. And so within 2 days of landing in LA last year, I called my assistant in London and I said, I need to pack down my studio. I need to pack down my home. As soon as I return to London, I'm collapsing everything and I'm leaving. It was true. I was telling people within 3 days of being in LA, I was like, I'm going to be here next year. I am going to be here next year. I'm going to get the visa. I'm going to do whatever the fuck I need to do to be here. On my first trip to LA, I met so many amazing women. And you know who my favorite kind of women in the world are? It's spiritual women that also fucking love making money. That's my type of woman. It's the woman who knows that she's of best service in the world by helping people, and also knows that she's not supposed to be a fucking martyr and sacrifice herself to do so. Those are my favorite women. Spiritual women that fucking love making money because they know that you can be so much more generous when you make good money. Like, those are my favorite kind of women. The women that don't accept their little slice of humble crumble the way that we've been taught to do. Those are my favorite fucking women. And they're here. And these were all women that I just reached out to on Instagram before my flight. I said, hey, long shot, but I'm going to be in LA next week. I'm obsessed with you. Would you want to hang out? And they all said yes. So I had the best fucking week. I met these amazing women and it was like I was tasting what a life in LA could be like. And I flew home and I decided I need to live in this sunny place that celebrates crazy women like me. That's what I felt. And I didn't even know if I'd be here long term. I just knew it was next. And so when I returned to London, it was like I had this big, fat, throbbing fucking crush on Los Angeles. Like this version of myself that I'd got to taste, and I just couldn't wait to taste her again because Floss felt so fucking good in LA. And so I came home and I decided to sell everything I owned because a life in the UK did not make sense to me anymore. And I knew that the life I wanted needed to be much smaller. So there's a bigger picture going on that kind of led to my LA awakening, which was that I'd been living a life of excess. I had this team, I had a publicist, I had an assistant, I had a fucking studio. Like I had all of this stuff. I had a home. I had all of this stuff that didn't add any happiness to my life, because actually the thing that brings me happiness is creating things, freedom, self-expression, and connection, and broadcasting myself, and creating art and living and experiencing awe. And I didn't need all of this excess stuff that I'd created and generated. It was like my life that I was living was top heavy. And I wanted to live a life that was as minimal as possible, because the more responsibilities I took on, the more stressed I became, which led to my burnout a few years ago. There's a whole like story that comes before everything I just told you. But LA was essentially the last nail in the coffin. It was this, I had tasted this frequency of freedom. And it was the thing that pushed me over the edge to start collapsing my life in London. London is where I created myself. London is where I created my career as an artist, as a writer. But there was so much old weight to that woman. And I think part of me knew that clearly because I started that fucking diary, didn't I? I started that diary at the airport before going to LA, and I called it A Whole New Fucking Bitch. And it was like something in me wanted to work with new people and be in a new landscape that didn't know the small, pleasing version of me. Even if the people in my life were amazing, I needed to shake off the mirrors in my life that reflected back this old self that I had outgrown for years. Because sometimes old versions of you exist in other people. Old versions of you exist in the connections that you have with other people because you respond in reaction to the way they see you. And you can feel that when you try to expand out of that version, it makes them uncomfortable. And so I felt like I had outgrown the role and the woman I had become in London. I just knew that I needed a shift, and I knew that I didn't want to own and possess all of this stuff anymore. And then once I went to LA, it was like, yeah, I need to be able to come here, but I can't because I've got this and this person on a retainer and this thing in London and this studio. And it was like, that doesn't make me happy. It's not a flex for me to have all of these responsibilities and be seen as this like boss bitch that's doing all of this stuff. I would much rather actually live a very fucking simple life, which is also so much of a flex, but like own less things and be able to move around a lot more. And I realized that the flex of my life was the freedom. Freedom is the flex. The flex isn't owning all of this stuff and having all of these responsibilities and being so fucking busy that you can't go and see your friends and manage a schedule and da-da-da-da-da. That's a form of escapism. I found this other form of happiness, this freedom that it didn't belong to LA, but LA gave me a taste of what that could look like. And I just needed to come here. And so when I returned to London after being in Los Angeles, I was collapsing my life, and my assistant was helping me sell my things, box everything up. But I was also beginning the illustrations for my book, Women Living Deliciously. And I was doing the illustrations, I was editing the book, I was doing all of this stuff while collapsing my life, ending my contracts, getting rid of my studio that I had, the lease, the bills, sorting out all of this stuff. I had a chat with my management team and I told them that I would be moving to Los Angeles and that it didn't make sense for me to still be working with them. So I left my talent management team that I was signed to for about 8 years. These were like my industry family, right? They'd like seen me through my whole career. And I told them that I was going and they were shocked but happy for me, which was really wonderful. And it's so funny because everyone that I was telling and everyone that I had to sort of like let go of, it felt really hard for me to do. And part of me thought that someone was going to like tell me I was being bad. Like, no, you're not allowed to leave. You're not allowed to do this. You're not allowed to have this freedom. But everyone was so fucking happy for me. And then I published my book and I was just waiting. I had to wait for my visa. So I went through a whole process with my visa that took about 10 months to come through. And I finally got my visa approved. I went to the US Embassy and I have like a picture of myself getting it stamped in the car. I was so happy. And I promised myself I would not be going back to Los Angeles until I lived there. And I felt like I'd spent like eternity away from this crush, you know? Like I just loved her so much. And I just couldn't wait to be reunited with her. And that year of waiting, because I wasn't sure, was my visa going to get approved? Was this going to happen? Were things all going to work out? It was like existing in this corridor of my life where neither versions of me existed. So the old Floss was still very much here. None of you knew what I was doing because I don't share a lot about my life. I like to tell the story of it later, if and when I want to. But you'll get it all in my memoir that I write when I'm like 50, don't worry. And I spent this year waiting. And in that year, from March 2024 to March this year, it was an entire year that I waited. I experienced a few seasons of depression. I was, especially after handing in my book, I always have post-book depression. Future Floss, when you write your next book, remember, it's not personal. This happens all the time. You don't hate your life. You're fine. I get it every book that I write. And I experienced this post-book depression. I didn't feel like I belonged anywhere. I will read some of my diary entries that I wrote because they were quite fucking profound. Because learning to sit in that liminal space, in the corridor of your life, and have the courage to stay there and wait and not just run back to the comfort of the old life, that shit is fucking hard. Because there's so much weighing up for you. You know what I did the whole month before I moved to LA, when I hadn't yet had my plane ticket booked because I was still waiting on some visa stuff? I listened to La La Land, the soundtrack, every single day. You know, at the beginning of the movie when they're all like stuck in traffic and they start singing that song, "It's another day of sun." I was listening to it every single morning before I came here. And part of me was also a bit nervous, like, will LA still feel the same as it did during those 7 days? Because I'd only spent 7 days here, right? And it did. Wow. Do you want to know what happens next? Well, you're going to have to wait. Tune in next Tuesday for part 2 of my Los Angeles saga, where I get into all of the details about what my life has been like since living here. I want to leave you on a cliffhanger. I'm a storyteller, what can I say? See you next Tuesday. Mwah!